myself. I am the Digital Education Program Manager at Heart Midlothian Innovation Centre. So the Innovation Centre started in 2018 with a single Coder Dojo club, and it has since grown into a full suite of activities. We do coding workshops, robotics workshops, and we're moving into electronics now. Over the course of the pandemic, we switched everything to online, and we're currently running 3 online clubs a week. So we look at an hour of code for primary school, our Digital Champions Open Club for older attendees, and a special video games club that has been funded by the Digital Extra Fund that we run every Wednesday. So we're currently halfway through our second cohort of that. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. So if it's all right with Hillary, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully you can see that. So this is the platform we've been using to run our gamers clubs. And it is a wonderful free resource that allows you to jump right into coding with young people. And you as a youth leader don't actually need that much experience to know how to run it, because it gives you all the tools you really need. So what we've been doing at each of our, I'll talk you through the platform first. So it's arcade.makecode.com, and you're greeted with this opening page. Your own projects will be up here. As you can see, I've been debugging some of our attendees' projects. So the games are easy to share. I'll show you, they've got a cute little QR code. You can share them with your friends, but they have all the tools you need. So the main tool is the skill maps, and this is, it'll teach you how to build a complete game in step-by-step processes, and these range in difficulty. So these are the very next step after the tutorials. But to get you started, we always recommend starting with the tutorial. And then in addition to that, once you've gone through the tutorials and the skill maps, we recommend looking at the live coding. These are great. If you've got a bit of time, young people nowadays are quite a fan of watching walkthroughs and games on YouTube. So these are quite handy to walk through the process of coding your own games. And then it's got example games. So this uses predominantly block-based coding, which is similar to Scratch. So most young people will already be familiar with the type of coding that it does, but it also includes JavaScript, and some tutorials include Python as well. So it's a really good starting point for young people to get into it. They can start off with block-based coding and then perhaps move into JavaScript. It's really flexible. And then the interesting thing is it includes on this main page examples of games made in game jams. So these are games made by more professionals, so if people with a bit more experience, but it's a good insight into the types of things you can create with this basic type of platform. So there's a remake of Tomb Raider. This Flying Through Time is really fun. Glitch is also a really interesting take on it, and it's interesting because this is a platform, it's mostly platform-based arcade games that you can build with this, but it's a good example of what you can actually do with this platform. And then there's live streams, community games, and other types of concepts. And finally, there is hardware that you can actually play the games on. So I've got a few of these Meow Bits, and attendees, when clubs are in person, can program their game, and then they can actually play it on a physical console. So within a single-hour session, they can go from having nothing to having built a complete little video game and then playing it on a physical console. So it's amazing. So I would like to introduce you to one of the tutorials, and I invite you to follow it with me. I can pop the link into the chat, and I can show you just how easy it is to get started. I don't have access to the chat. Oh wait, here I do. I'll show you just how easy it is to get started with your young people. So hopefully you can see that link. And if you are following along, your page should open onto this homepage. And we're going to do the Corgio tutorial. So this Corgio tutorial is going to allow you to build your first platformer. And we like to start really basic, run through a very basic version of it. And then once the tutorial is completed, young people can go back in and add in more elements or turn it into a more creative game. So we start off with a very sort of basic version. So it's in the tutorial section. If you pop along to this little arrow over here and give that a click, it'll take you through a few more tutorials. And I do believe it's on the third click, it's this simple extensions tutorial. So if you give that a little click, it lets you know it's a block-based tutorial. And this is a really great first tutorial to run through with your youth clubs. This works really well in person, but as I said, we've been running these clubs completely online and our young people have managed, and it's not been too much of a challenge because the tutorial really talks you through step by step. So it tells you this is an extension to the normal blocks. And when your screen opens up, your simulator is going to be on the left-hand side over here. You can flick between your simulator and the tutorial instructions. So as you code your game, it's going to appear over here on the simulator screen. And this looks the same as the Meow bit. So young people can really get an idea of what their game will look like on a console. The instructions are over here. And then your blocks are over here in your little block tray. And this is your workspace where you're pulling the blocks out onto. So in the tutorial sections, the reason these are so nice is because it limits the amount of blocks your young people have access to. So when you click into one of these sets, you only have a handful per option. So this is a lot easier than just starting from scratch, because when you start from scratch, it gives you the full list of all the available blocks and it can be a bit daunting. So tutorials are a good way to get your young people familiar with the platform and familiar with techniques, things like gravity, things like walls, without them being overwhelmed with an excess of blocks. So we'll just run through the tutorial. It won't take too long, and we'll leave the creativity out of it just so we can come to grips with it first. So it tells you the first thing you do is set my cork to Corgio. So they've created all these blocks for you and you're all ready to go. It's really simple, sort of click through. So it tells you exactly what to do, drag it through. And if you need a little bit of help, it's got this little light bulb that shows you. A few of them have GIF versions of it actually dragging the block into it. So it really is very accessible. And the next thing it says is to add controls. So this is moving Corgio left and right. So we'll pop that in and a jumping one. And then if you pop over to your simulator, your Corgio should appear and you should be able to control it. So as they're going along, they'll be able to see whether their game is working or not. And then we're going to change the image. So this gives them an idea of animation. So all of these blocks, the reason this is so lovely is they can immediately animate their Corgio. And in next tutorials, follow-on tutorials, they'll learn more about how they've animated Corgio with specific animation blocks. So we can check if Corgio is animated. Yep, so we can see a little bit of running movement. But we sort of want to make our platform a little bit bigger. So the next step, it moves on to tile maps. So it introduces your attendees to the idea of what the tile map of a platformer should look like. So it tells us in the scene blocks to add a tile map on start. I'll put it in the top. And then it tells you to set the size of the tile map to 20 by 8 and draw some platforms for Corgi to stand on, and then set them to walls. This is the only vague point in this tutorial, but the the little light bulb talks you through exactly what you need to do. So at this stage, a lot of the main pitfall of this is young people don't know to set it to walls. So this is the wall tool. So you would change the size of your platform to 20 by 8. And then it invites you to add some platforms for Corgio to jump on. And it's at this point, I'm always telling them, don't worry, you don't need to get too detailed. We're just setting out the basis for what we want it to look like. And then you add the walls. So this tool over here is what's going to make these platforms solid. But I always like to show them the difference. So this is what your platform currently looks like. And when we pop over to Corgio, it appears, but we aren't actually standing on our platforms. So to stand on them, we use this tool over here. It highlights everything in red. And now we've created solid surfaces for our Corgio to jump on. We'll wait for the game to refresh. So we can see our games coming together, but we don't have access to the rest of the tile map in the actual game. So that's going to be the next step. The next step we're going to do is control the camera. So we're making the camera follow Corgio. Corgio box, make camera follow Corgio. And we'll give that a little test out. So it's working. So we're on our way. We've got Corgio moving around the platform. We've got everything coming together. And now we need to add a bit more challenge to it. So this tells us to add a column that's a different color to the end of the tile map. So we'll click in the tile map and you can go to My Tiles and draw your own tile. It gives you full access to the sort of pixel art version, or you could go to the gallery and pick a tile. So there's many pre-created tiles. I might pick a tree tile, click done, and I'll pop that over there. So this is going to be my target tile, where my Corgio is aiming to get to. And then we're going to work with overlaps. So back in scene, what happens when our sprite of kind player overlaps with our tree tile? And we choose game over, win. So our game knows once our Corgio reaches our tree tile, we can win. And a nice little way to edit this immediately is to change the effect. So we could have a confetti effect or a blizzard effect, starfield, confetti. And then we'll just have a look at what that looks like. Oh dear, this is where you see how bad my actual gaming skills are. I'm going to have to move that tree because there's no way I'm going to reach it. I'll pop it over there. And we'll just run along the bottom. So we've won. So this is the end of the tutorial. So it tells you, congratulations, you've made your first platformer. And once you click done, if you keep an eye on these blocks over here, we've finished our project. When your young people go to publish it, it gives you a QR code that you can scan. So you can scan these QR codes on your cell phone and then you can play them on your phone or on your iPad. You can copy the link, of course, to share with your friends. But all of these blocks in the center have opened up. So the first thing I would usually do, and you'll be able to see there's plenty more options. So this can get a bit daunting, which is why we always start with the tutorials. Even for Corgio, a few more blocks open up. So what I invite them to do first is to create a lose tile. So they could increase the length of their platform. They could add in perhaps fire tiles. to turn the floor into lava. So I'll increase the length to 30 to make my game a bit longer. And then I'll just increase the length of my platform, so with walls. And then you could add a negative tile. So the options it gives you, these are quite a few options, but our young people are always fans of drawing their own. I'm going to remove the wall aspect of this. So to remove walls, you would click on the eraser and then erase that wall. And then just duplicate this block. Change that to your fire tile and then change that to lose. So now we've added a lose block to our game. So we are going to give our young people different things to try to get to. So this is a really good way to start building your own platformer really simply and really quickly. We then invite young people to add more sprites. So what happens if you had another overlap, but it was a sprite overlapping another sprite? What would happen then? You can add in enemies. You can add in food sprites to give you lives. You could add in things like in the info, you can add in a score. You can add in lives. And it's really quite simple and quite accessible for young people to grasp because they're already familiar with what they've been doing in Scratch. And even if they aren't, we have a few young people who've never done Scratch before, but they've really grasped this idea quite quickly.